Hello, Lucy and Conrad and Caleb. Papa and Spider-Man are back to finish the story about the menace of Mole Man. Remember, in the first half of our story, the Mole Man has captured Sue Storm and is using her as a hostage to force the other three members of the FF to serve him and defend him. And so he sent them back up to the surface. Well, guess who they're going to find when they arrive at the top? That's right. It's the Avengers. What's going to happen when the three FF members have to fight against the Avengers to keep them from attacking the Mole Man? Well, don't wait any longer. I'm ready to tell the rest of the story. And here it is. Look, they're flying up to the surface, and you can see the Avengers lined up here at the top. Benjamin says, "Hey, look at the reception committee we got. The Avengers." Iron Man says, "We thought we might be able to help." Giant Man is reaching out his big arm and he says, "Stretch out your hand, Torch. I'll grab you." And so, seconds later, the Avengers line up to speak to the three members of the FF. And the FF have explained what's going on. And Iron Man says, "So it is the Mole Man who's responsible for the quakes and the missing blocks." Giant Man says, "You've done your share. Now we'll tackle him. Perhaps we can take him by surprise." And Lucy, did you see who's standing on Giant Man's shoulder? Yes, there's the Wasp. But Mr. Fantastic says, "No, you mustn't." He says, "Wait, come back. You've got to let me explain. Stop." The Avengers just charge ahead. Thor says, "Do not worry, Reed Richards. Our power shall be equal to the task." And Iron Man says, "Jets on, let's move." And so Mr. Fantastic has to reach out and snatch Thor. He says, "I said, wait." Thor says, "What? You dare?" Thing says, "You keep back, Buttercup. Let them settle this for themselves, see?" He's talking to Captain America. Mr. Fantastic says, "Stop swinging that hammer till I say what I have to say. I've the right to demand that much." Thor says, "Perhaps, but your words had best be most convincing." And so now the Torch is flying rings around Iron Man. He says, "There, I thought that heating your tin suit would bring you back to the surface, pal." Iron Man says, "I warn you, Torch, jokes like this don't amuse me." And so the Thing grabs Giant Man and he says, "Come here, Shorty. Where do you think you're going? Can't you guys find enough nuts to fight up here?" And then the Thing turns to Captain America and says, "Hey, I told you to keep out of this." Captain America says, "Thing, it's lucky for you that we all fight the same fight. Otherwise, I'd be mighty tempted to make you regret your insolence." Yeah, well, I wouldn't want to see a fight between Captain America and the Thing, but I'm pretty sure I know who would win. Right. So, Giant Man finally says, "Easy, Thor, let's give him a chance to speak." Thor says, "Say what you must, quickly. Our patience wears exceedingly thin." And then Mr. Fantastic says, "So does ours, fella, so stay back. The Mole Man has a hostage down there. our partner, Sue Storm, and no one is going to endanger her life. Thor says, but the lives of many may be at stake if he isn't stopped. Mr. Fantastic says, he'll be stopped, but we'll do it our way. Thor says, very well, we shall not step in for a period of 24 hours. You have till then. And so, the Avengers leave. And that's all we'll see of them for this issue. And the Thing asks, how come you let him talk to you that way, big brain? Reed says, we've nothing to gain by fighting the Avengers, Ben. Besides, I'm indebted to Iron Man for these transistor devices. So look, Reed Richards, the great inventive genius that he is using some of Tony Stark's inventions in order to create weapons to defeat Mole Man. Reed says, when I told him what I wanted, Iron Man got all the component parts for me at Anthony Stark's weapons factory, where the Golden Avenger works as Stark's bodyguard. The Thing asks, but what is that blamed thing? Reed answers, it's a complex, highly sensitive, transistorized detector of my own design. It's going to locate Sue's exact position underground for us. Take a look at the back of my helmet, Ben. Johnny says, can't we step on it, Reed? Every minute counts. So Johnny is ready to flame on again. Ben looks inside the helmet and says, it looks like the inside of a coffee vending machine. What in Sam Hill is all this jazz? Well, you never know when a cup of coffee would come in handy, right? No, this is not a coffee vending machine. Reed says, it's a built-in computer to work in conjunction with the detector. And now we're ready, Johnny. Are y'all ready? I'm ready. Let's get it on. Ooh, meanwhile, back in the Mole Man's domain, Mole Man says, cannot you see how useless your struggles are? My will is supreme here. And they're clutching Sue Storm in their grip. And they place her inside a prison. Mole Man says, you will remain within that rock crystal cage until my work is done. You have served your purpose well. And Sue says, no one truly realizes how powerful the Mole Man is, except the FF. And yet, because of me, they won't fight him. This is terrible, terrible. And thousands of leagues above, the Thing says, don't you feel like a nut walking around in that getup? Torch says, you're a fine one to talk, Ben. When we consider the getup that Ben walks around in. But then Johnny says, clam up and let him work, will you? And Reed says, look, it's starting to glow. This is the spot. All right, Torch, remember what I told you. Speed and surprise are the important things. Go to it. Torch says, stay back. I'm not kidding around this time. I'll use my near nova heat to blast a path down there in seconds. Look at that flame. Look at that intense nova heat. And it's melting the sidewalk and the cement and the foundation. And it's just going straight down into the earth. And Ben says, no matter what happens, I'll bet you I end up with the heavy work as usual. And then Johnny takes off and he flies down below. He says, look out below. This time I'm not stopping for anything. Reed says, shake a leg, Ben. We've got to follow him. Ben says, I know, but are you sure this overgrown pinwheel will work? Pinwheel? And Reed says, of course. It's an experimental Army hover cycle, which I modified with increased jet power, whatever all that means, but I'm sure it'll work. And sure enough, Ben says, can't you ever just answer yes or no? Reed says, no more cracks, big fella. We've got to concentrate on our job now. This is it. And look at that hover cycle. It's descending down into the tunnel that the torch has created. But far below, Mole Man sees on his panel, it says danger, and it's a red light. He says the danger signal. It can't be the Fantastic Four. They wouldn't dare. Well, of course they would dare. He goes on, whoever is trying to invade my domain will soon learn the price of such folly. Attack my servile hordes. Destroy any who defy you. And so his subterranean minions fly off in these strange devices of the Mole Man's design. But before the subterranean army can reach the spot, the Human Torch enters Sue's rock crystal prison through the one unguarded area from above. And now, he says, now you'll be okay, sis. This flame will make an escape path for us to follow. Follow me. Look at the flame. Look how it's melting the subterranean earth. Look how the minions are fleeing the heat and flame of the torch's power. Then, using her invisible force beam like a battering ram, the courageous girl follows her blazing brother without hesitation, scattering their enemies like tin pins. So look, Lucy, at last, Sue Storm has the opportunity to use her great power in the fight against Mole Man, and she uses her invisible power beam to shoot projectiles that knock away these minions, and of course the Human Torch is using his flame as well. Torch says, so far so good, but we've got to find the Mole Man before he gives his mindless legions new instructions on how to stop us. Sue says, careful, Johnny, he has a safety dome just ahead, but it's highly fortified. There it is, says Johnny. Holy cow, he's got enough control levers in there to qualify for Mad Scientist of the Year. Of course, he'd have a lot of competition with all the scientists we have in the comics, right? Sue says, Johnny, go back. He's reaching for his Zeta Ray switch. Go back. All right, what's the Zeta Ray switch? Ooh, here come ray guns with pulse power. Johnny says, sis, I'm through going back. No matter how fast he can fire these Zeta particles, I can fly rings around them. She says, but your flame, it won't last forever. But look at those Zeta Ray particles, and look how fast Johnny is flying around them. But Johnny says, I won't have to. Look who's here. And here come Ben and Reed in their hovercraft. Sue says, Reed and Ben, oh, thank heavens. All right, so they've arrived, and Reed hollers, Sue, shield yourself, your force field, quick. And so she throws up her force field. Ben says, she's okay now, rubber legs, so I'm going to find me that Mole Man. The minions are shooting off their ray guns and pressing against the force field, but they can't dent it. It's too powerful. Look, Lucy, see how well Sue has defended herself. Here comes the Thing. He says, gangway, you creeps. It's clobbering time. And he just clobbers and clobbers. And all of a sudden, the idea of having a corny battle cry is okay with Ben, because clobbering time is what he likes to holler out when he's ready to fight. And look how effective he is. He's so strong and powerful. And Sue says, Reed, darling, I was afraid you'd never get here. Reed says, stay close to us, Sue. We can't stop now. Ben, we've got to find the energy machine which lowered those city blocks. And Ben asks, what happens when we find it? Reed says, we'll reverse it, of course. Ben says, okay, Big Dome, there it is. Start reversing. Sue says, Reed, everything seems to be finally going our way. Why do you still look so troubled? Well, it's because it's not the end of the comic yet, and so there's several more pages of trouble that we can get into, right? Oh, yeah. So, Reed says, I can't forget that man's picture in the paper, Sue, and the way you reacted to it, and your visit to police headquarters. But we'll speak of that later. Well, I would think so. Why bring that up now when we're really tense about escaping? With a silent prayer, Reed Richards hurls the switch, reversing its normal direction, and then with a thunderous roar, Reed says it worked. The missing streets are returning to the surface. Ben says, but we still ain't found the mole man. And Sue says, what about Johnny? Where is he? Where is he indeed? There he is. He's still dodging those zeta particles. He says, right over here, sis. I've been playing tag with these zeta bolts to keep them away from you. But now that the missing city blocks are safely back, I'll finish this little game with a bang. Pow! He shoots off his flame and destroys the zeta particle rays. He says, wow, I figured a heat blast might set off a chain reaction, but I didn't count on anything like this. Wow, look at that big explosion. All right, Reed says, quick, head for the hover cycle. I'll shield you with my body. Hurry. Ben says, you shielding me. Now there's a twist. Ben can be so tacky. And Johnny says, what's the big hurry, Reed? Why don't we wait and settle up with Moley? That is Mole Man. Reed says, keep moving. I'll explain later. And so Reed and Sue and Ben are in the hovercraft. But of course, Johnny's the Human Torch, and so he can just fly up. Suddenly, as they near the surface, Reed says, there's your answer. Ben says, the whole blame place blew up. When old Torchy starts a chain reaction, he ain't kidding. Boom! Look how that whole subterranean kingdom just blew up. Ben says, home sweet home. Attaboy, Junior. Seal that hole up to keep the riffraff out. Reed says, Ben, quick, steer for the hospital. Sue was hurt in the explosion. Oh, no. Johnny says, sis, oh, no. Oh, no is right. Sue has been hurt. Ben says, what happened to her, Reed? Reed says she was hit by a piece of flying shrapnel. It's her head. It looks serious. Faster, man. And Torch says, I'll fly ahead and alert them. So they're heading to the hospital with an injured Sue Storm. Many x-rays later, Johnny says, sis, you've just got to pull through. The doctor says, no sense pulling any punches, Richards. It's critical. No man on the staff would attempt the operation required. And Reed says, but there must be someone who can save her. The doctor says there's only one man who's ever performed such an operation successfully. Reed says, then get him, no matter what the cost, no matter where he is, get him. The doctor said, I wish I could. He stopped practicing medicine years ago. I don't know where he is. And then Reed says, then there's no hope for Sue? The doctor says there's always hope. You must cling to that thought, but we can do no more. Reed says, I can't give up. At least tell me that doctor's name. Perhaps we can find him. The doctor says, it's useless, Richards. He had been in prison. In fact, he escaped only recently. He's not likely to give himself up just to save another. Don't be too sure of that, doctor, says this strange man at the doorway. Who is this man? Reed recognizes him. He says, it's the man whose picture Sue saw in the paper. Johnny says, you! He recognizes the man. But all these years, Sue told me you were dead. And the doctor says it can't be, but it is. It is. He recognizes this stranger at the door. Can it be the doctor? The one person who could save Sue? Yes. The man says, I wanted you to think I was dead, son. I'd caused enough sorrow to your poor mother. I didn't want to hurt my children also. So this must be the father of Sue and Johnny. He goes on, when I heard on the radio bulletin about Sue, Johnny says, Dad, oh Dad, you're back. The doctor says there's no time to lose. We'll prepare her for surgery. And then Reed realizes, so that's the answer. He's their father. I never even suspected. Hours later, Ben is standing up against the wall with his arms folded. He says, I don't get any of this, but if your old man can save Susie, then he must be an okay Joe, kid. Reed says, you and Sue never mentioned your parents. I always assumed you were orphans. Johnny explains, Dad had been one of the greatest surgeons, but then something happened. I can't get myself to talk about it now. Reed says, I understand, Johnny. All that matters now is Sue's recovery. And so now Ben announces, it's over. They're bringing her out. Reed says, she looks so white, so pale. Johnny asks, Reed, do you think? And then here comes Dr. Storm. Johnny says, Dad, what? Dr. Storm says, I was fortunate that I arrived in time. Sue will recover. Reed says, you saved her? Ben is so happy he picks up his two friends. Said, well, what do you know? Susie girl's going to be okay. Johnny says, hey, look out, you big clown. Reed says, go to it, Benji boy. Let off all the steam you want to. This is our day to howl. But then the door swings open as grim-faced men enter. And so it's policemen. One of them has a pair of handcuffs. He says, Dr. Storm, and Dr. Storm says, I'm ready, Inspector. I've been waiting for you. The policeman said, you must have known we'd get you if you came here. Johnny cries out, Dad! Dr. Storm says, my daughter will be conscious soon. Could I see her once more before I go? The inspector says, it's against regulations. But Reed says, I'll assume the responsibility, Inspector. And so he says, well, in that case. Dr. Storm asks, shall we go in together, Johnny? Johnny says, you bet, Dad. And so with his hand on his shoulder, Johnny and his dad enter Sue's hospital room. And there they watch over Sue. And we know now that she will recover, although her father will have to return to jail. The editor asks, a strange ending for a Fantastic Four tale, yes? Perhaps, but then life itself is full of strange, unexpected events, as we shall learn next issue. So please join us, for when all is said and done, we're nothing without you. So this is the end of the story about the menace of the Mole Man. An unusual ending, right? When Sue is endangered by shrapnel, but is saved by her father who came out of nowhere. Well, we'll hear more about the father in the next issue. And in the next issue, we'll see the next opponent for the Fantastic Four. And he's known as the Invincible Man. Well, is he really an invincible man? Not when he comes up against the Fantastic Four, but that's a story for our next adventure, and I'm looking forward to it. Well, I hope you're enjoying these Fantastic Four stories. We have some more great stories up ahead. Until then, love y'all very much. Bye-bye.